After a couple of delays and years of waiting, Gotham Knights is finally here. The team behind Arkham Origins is taking us back to Gotham City for the first time since 2015. There's been a lot of controversy behind this game in recent weeks. Is the gameplay boring? Does the lack of a performance mode even make it worthwhile? Well, let's get into it. So let's start with the elephant in the room. Right away, I noticed the low frame rate and lack of performance mode. A bit of a bummer, no cap, especially since while playing on PS5, the frame rate had the tendency to drop below 30 FPS. This mainly happened on two occasions, when I was driving the Batcycle through the city at top speed and when I had a co-op partner in the game and we were on separate sides of the map. It didn't happen every time, but enough to be noticeable. And if I was having issues like this on the PS5, I can't imagine how this would run on the Series S, the weakest spec-wise of these next-gen consoles. I really hope Warner Bros. Montreal patches this as soon as possible, and while they're at it, throw in a performance mode for PS5 and Series X, because we know the Series S would detonate if you added it there. As far as the gameplay goes, I experienced a little bit of sluggishness at first, but I think that was more so me getting reacclimated to the Arkham-style controls. For instance, there's no dedicated jump button in this game, and like the Arkham games, you hold X near ledges to jump and use the grappling hook and gliding to do much of the traversal. Spider-Man definitely had your boy programmed to want to press a jump input, but once it started to feel natural again, I actually enjoyed flying around Gotham. It got to the point to where I barely used the Batcycle and eventually didn't even use bridges to cross over the rivers. The combat was much more familiar and simple to pick up on. That system is easy peasy. You have a light attack, a heavy attack, a ranged attack, a heavy ranged attack, and then 8 special moves called momentum moves. You unlock momentum moves as you progress through the game, as well as new abilities from the skill tree, and can mix up bad guys combining these with your regular attacks. The good news is leveling up characters and unlocking these moves and abilities is a light grind. This encourages players to try more than one hero, and you won't have to spend too much time getting all the good shit in these skill trees. What is not in this combat system though, and this is disappointing, is parrying and blocking. You pretty much just evade incoming attacks from enemies, and there's a perfect evade system that rewards you with a special attack, but there's no blocking or parrying in this game. This was extremely frustrating to me. There's also no launchers, so there's no aerial-based combos, which I always prefer to see. And I feel they grounded the combat to make this game simpler for folks. So if you're a hardcore player of these type of games, you might want to up the difficulty on Gotham Knights off rip, but beware, the combat is extremely basic. Where this game shined the most for me was in the story. Now, if you didn't know, it takes place after the untimely demise of Batman and tasks the 4 playable characters with solving the mystery behind his passing and dealing with the ramifications of it for Gotham City. With that, you see a lot of the characters and villains acting a certain way because Bruce Wayne is no longer amongst the living, and that dynamic to me was very interesting. From the story missions to the villain quest lines, I think they did a good job building suspense and making the player want to do the next mission to see what happens. Be warned though, the voice acting gets a little campy at certain points, and there are definitely some AO moments, especially while playing as Nightwing.
I'm proud of you, Dick.
But I think from a narrative standpoint, this was a good look for DC properties. Folks who are upset about this game existing outside the Arkhamverse, open your minds, this is a fresh take, or just wait until they continue that story in the Suicide Squad game. What the Avengers game failed to do with their gear system is far more sufficiently executed in this game. I think the gear system in this didn't feel tacked on or out of place, and there's actually a bit of strategy to it. There's some bosses and enemies you'll want to pull out your fire gear for some you'll want to use your electric-based gear, etc. On God, it reminded me a little bit of Horizon, where the modding, crafting, and customization is fairly basic, yet there's enough depth for it to enhance the gameplay without being intrusive. A lot of folks who previewed this game were comparing it to The Division. I'd say that's a good comparison for the gear system. You have your rare, common, uncommon, epic, and legendary gear, and the tougher the enemy, the better the gear drops. The customization is pretty simple too. There's about 15 or 16 costumes per character, all of which you can make slight tweaks to, and all of it is built into this game. There are no microtransactions in Gotham Knights. Big W for Studio Montreal there. Another one of this game's saving graces is the fact that you can play this entire thing with a friend, which is dope. We know co-op makes everything better. Ask Kane and Lynch. That game got a whole ass sequel because of co-op. But look, they actually pulled it off in this. It's quite seamless. The entire game has drop-in, drop-out co-op, and when you and your partner go out on night crusades, the entire map is open and explorable. You can take on fighting crime in different areas if you choose, or stick together and tag team all the altercations. The only time the game forces you to be together is during certain story missions, and all the progress can be shared by both players. You know, you may run into an argument or two with your partner over whether to be stealthy or going with a full-on assault approach to certain areas, but that's the beauty of having having options. WB Games is also adding a 4-player arena-based mode in November, so we'll see what that's all about. There's other little details I enjoy, like the police promptly showing up to crime scenes after you deal with bad guys, and pressing you if you don't flee the scene before they arrive, the near non-existent load times, the dialogue between co-op characters, and so on. These nuances added a little value to the experience. Look, the frame rate issue is, to be frank, disappointing. This game isn't groundbreaking by any means, and it's not without its issues. But if you haven't been jaded by the near flawless optimization of the Spider-Man games, you enjoy the Arkham series or just Batman in general, and you're looking for a good story-based game to play with a friend, you might want to keep Gotham Knights on your radar because there definitely was a solid effort made by the devs. And to be honest, I think this is what the evolution of superhero games will be: seamless co-op open world experiences. We've come such a long way from Maximum Carnage. I hope this gave some folks some good insight, and for more news and game reviews with no cap, make sure you stay tuned here on New Meta. Peace.